You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look me better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Every step felt heavy, weighted by panic and uncertainty. Dust drifted in from outside, sirens wailing closer, faint crashes echoing from distant debris. He has to be okay, he just has to be. They moved cautiously through the streets in their disguises. Everything looked normal at first, quiet, people going about their business, but as they neared 10th Street, a crowd had gathered near the wreckage. Emergency crews were finishing up, having already excavated the shop for survivors or victims. Aside from Ian, there were none. Rumi, Mira, and Zoey slipped under the yellow tape warning people away. The ramen shop was utterly destroyed, the roof had caved in, walls shattered, and debris littered the ground. It looked more like a battleground than the aftermath of an earthquake. Jesus, there's so much BLD, Mira said quietly, voice unsteady, as they stepped closer to the counter where a huge patch of dark red stained the wood. Rumi's breath caught in her throat. Her heart raced, hyperventilating. Was it demons that had attacked? Something else? It didn't look like a normal quake. She moved closer, clutching her sweater tight, and dialed Menma's number again. This time, a faint ring came through. She ran to the counter, heart hammering, and froze. Menma's phone lay there, coated in BLD, cracked and broken. The sight hit her like a physical blow, and she collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face. Mira and Zoey rushed to her side. It's okay. It's just his phone, Mira said gently, trying to keep her voice steady. It has to be, Zoey added softly. But Rumi shook her head, face buried in her hands, sweater sleeves hiding trembling fingers. The reality was bleak. She wiped her eyes, swallowed hard, and whispered, let's go home. Crestfallen, the three of them made their way back, the crowd and sirens fading behind them. The shop, the BLD, and the broken phone burned in Rumi's mind, leaving a hollow ache that wouldn't fade. Naruto stirred, groggy, ribs aching sharp with every breath. He tried to push himself upright, but the pain drove him back against the cot. I see you are awake. His eyes snapped open. A woman stood over him, calm, steady, a hunter's blade gleaming at his throat. Whoa, easy, lady, he rasped, lifting his hands slowly. I'm not here to cause trouble. Her face didn't change. If anything, her stillness made it worse. You are unlike any demon I've ever met. If you give me reason to kill you, I will not hesitate. Do you understand? Naruto swallowed hard and nodded, afraid his voice might betray him. The blade retreated an inch, enough to breathe again. Now, she said, tone flat, what is your name? The word rose to his lips, Menma, but it caught there, frozen. His chest tightened. No. That wasn't who he was anymore. Naruto, he whispered at last. Well, Naruto, she said, her voice still edged like steel, what are you doing here? She lowered the blade but didn't relax, settling into the chair beside his bed like a judge ready to pass sentence. I don't know, he admitted, voice hoarse. Last thing I remember, I was fighting Indra. Then I blacked out, and now I'm here. Her gaze narrowed, steady and unblinking. That's not what I asked. I mean, what are you doing in Korea? If Jiraiya can't control you, then you're either a half BLD or a demon from another continent. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Naruto's throat felt sand-dry. Half BLD, demon. The way she said it, like either choice was a curse. He tried to force a crooked grin, like maybe humor could soften the moment. Well, I'm not exactly from around here, you know. But her expression didn't change. Her eyes cut right through him, cold and searching, as if peeling back every layer he was trying to hide. The grin wilted. His chest tightened. How could he explain? That he wasn't a demon at all, not exactly. That he didn't even know what he was anymore. That part of him was human, and part of him was something else entirely, something even he hadn't accepted. If she knew the truth, would she cut him down without hesitation? Her voice broke the silence, flat and merciless. Explain. Now. There was no space for lies. No room for stalling. Naruto clenched his fists in the sheets, heart hammering. Tell her the truth and risk everything, or lie and lose himself all over again. He remembered the dream, their faces, warm and steady. Be proud of who you are, Sakura had told him. Naruto drew a shaky breath. His chest still hurt, but not just from the ribs. Slowly, halting at first, he began to speak. He told her about his childhood alone, shunned, the fox inside him making him an outcast. He left out the worst of it, the cruelties he couldn't bear to put into words. But he spoke of his village, of the bonds he had forged, of his team who had become his family. He told her about the Fourth Shinobi War, about Obito, the plan to use the tailed beasts to cast an endless illusion over the world. How he had stood against it, rallied armies, carried the weight of everyone's hopes. How many he had lost along the way. His voice grew steadier as he spoke, the words tumbling faster now. He told her of Kagaya's sudden rise, their swift defeat, and the portal that had torn open beneath him. How he had run not out of cowardice, but out of a desperate need to live when everything else collapsed. How, in fleeing, he had left behind everything he thought defined him. And finally, quietly, he told her about Kurama. How the fox's chakra had changed him, reshaped him. How he wasn't fully human anymore. When the last word left him, silence swallowed the room. The woman hadn't moved. She sat in the chair, blade now resting at her side, her expression unreadable. She hadn't interrupted once. She had simply listened. Naruto shifted under her gaze, suddenly uncertain again. The relief of speaking faded into the nervous weight of waiting for judgment. At last, she spoke. Her voice was low, clipped, but steady. I believe you. It made him gasp, almost disbelieving. I'm happy someone does. But why? Doesn't it sound fishy? The words spilled out too raw, and he winced at the vulnerability in his own voice. For the first time, her features softened just a flicker, the edge of pity, or maybe respect. Then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. Her expression hardened back into that same cold, unreadable mask. Naruto swallowed, the brief warmth already slipping through his fingers. She spoke at last, her tone measured, almost thoughtful. A demon doesn't protect humans. At best, they ignore us, believing people are beneath their notice. At worst, they're butchers. Cold-hearted killers, devourers of souls. I've never seen one take a killing blow for a human. Never seen one fight with everything they had just to keep people alive, even when it cost them the battle. Her gaze lingered on him, steady and unflinching. That's why I believe you. Her gaze lingered on him, steady and unflinching. That's why I believe you. Naruto's chest tightened. Relief rushed in, warm and unfamiliar, yet it twisted almost instantly into something heavier. His throat worked as he tried to speak. I tried. I tried to save everyone. But, his voice cracked, and he bit down hard, fists clenching in the sheets. I couldn't. So many didn't make it. And no matter how hard I fought, I couldn't change that. The words came out ragged, spilling before he could stop them. I don't feel like a hero. I don't feel like what you just said. I feel like I failed them. Every single one who died, I carry that. His eyes burned, and he turned his face away, ashamed to let her see. So if you believe me, if you really do, then you're believing in someone who couldn't protect the people who needed him most. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the sound of his unsteady breathing. The hunter didn't move. Didn't flinch. Her mask remained, cold and controlled, but her eyes, just for a heartbeat, betrayed something else. Indra is still out there, she said flatly. Healing. Waiting. And now he won't underestimate you. To win, you'll have to give everything and then some. That means focus. Her eyes narrowed, like a blade pressing into him. Yes, you lost people. But there are still more who don't deserve to die. Do you think while you wallow in guilt, the rest of them will be spared? Naruto recoiled, the bluntness hitting harder than any wound. No, of course not. Then understand this. Her voice was ice, merciless. You can't just win against him. You must vanquish him. Break his body, break his will, and destroy his soul. Naruto's breath caught, a shiver running through him. How? He asked, voice tight. With one of these. She drew her katana, its blade glowing a sharp, unnatural blue. The light shimmered against the walls, humming faintly, alive with a dangerous energy. These blades are toxic to demons, she explained, her tone matter of fact. A fatal wound from one doesn't just kill, it annihilates. No coming back. No fragments left behind. Before Naruto could respond, she flicked the blade and cut a shallow line across his forearm. The wound hissed, steam rising as the cut sizzled and burned, the air filling with the acrid tang of scorched flesh. Naruto's jaw tightened, but he didn't so much as flinch. Her brow arched, just slightly, a silent question. He glanced at her, voice low and steady. When you're raised for war at 6 years old, you learn not to cry over small cuts. Her brow lifted, that brief flicker of curiosity breaking through the mask. But instead of praise, she pressed the blade a little closer, letting the blue glow hum against his skin. Not crying isn't the same as not breaking, she said evenly. Plenty of men grit their teeth through pain and then crumble when it matters most. Naruto met her gaze, steady. The burn on his arm was nothing compared to the weight on his heart. I've already broken 100 times, he said, voice low. But I keep standing back up. That's the only thing I know how to do. For a long moment, she studied him. Then, with a sharp flick of her wrist, the katana dissolved into motes of blue light. The hum died away, leaving only silence. Naruto let out a slow breath. When he looked down, the shallow cut was still sizzling faintly. The skin around it had darkened, marked with a thin, glowing scar that pulsed once before settling into an angry red welt. The smell of ozone and scorched flesh lingered in the air, sharp in his nose. He flexed his fingers, testing the burn. It hurt more than it should have. And somehow, he knew it would never heal quite right. She leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable, as if the blade had never been there at all. These are weapons hunters use, she continued, her voice cool but edged with weight. But they are not the only ones who can wield them. Hunters channel their fans' energy to fuel the blade and seal the Hanmoon. You, however, you would have to use your soul. A feat only humans and half-demons can manage. Naruto blinked, surprised but oddly relieved. So Indra, he can't use this? She shook her head. No. But for you, it won't be simple. To summon such a weapon requires more than strength. You need a will unshakable and a life force that won't break under the strain. A normal human would die trying. Her gaze lingered on him, measuring. Let's hope your demon energy is strong enough to keep your human side from collapsing. She reached out, gently guiding his hands, placing them as if he were holding an unseen blade being offered to him. Now repeat after me, my blade is my soul, used from my whole blade, become my light. show my soul, become bright. Naruto drew a breath and echoed her words. The air shifted. Something tugged deep inside him, not painful, but heavy like a hand dragging at his very core. His breath caught. He felt it then, a presence watching him, vast and merciless, peeling him open. No barrier could hold. No lie could stand. His fears, his failures, his hopes, his stubborn dreams, everything was laid bare. And then came the voice, soft yet unyielding, from within his own soul. What is your goal? The question tore straight through him. His answer came without hesitation, without shield or doubt. To protect everyone. As he spoke the words, the presence within him tightened, almost like a vice pressing gently but insistently against his very soul. The air around him shimmered, a low hum vibrating through his chest, and he felt the weight of countless eyes expectant, judging, demanding, pressing from everywhere at once. And then he saw it. A hand-and-a-half sword materialized before him, hovering in midair. The handle gleamed ruby red, polished yet almost alive, veins of orange light flickering along its grip as if the weapon itself pulsed with a heartbeat. The blade was black, obsidian dark, but down its center ran a vibrant stream of orange energy, glowing like molten fire trapped in metal. Sparks of heat danced across its surface, not burning the air but radiating a raw, dangerous power. The sword wasn't just a weapon. It was him, forged from every choice, every failure, every shred of determination he'd ever held. Every scar, every heartbreak, every moment he'd vowed to keep moving forward, it all burned into this blade. Naruto's hands lifted instinctively, almost trembling, but when he wrapped his fingers around the ruby hilt, it fit as if it had always belonged there. Energy coursed up his arms, warm and raw, vibrating through his bones. He felt it connecting to him, demanding everything he had, but also answering to his will. The orange glow rippled, reflecting in his eyes, painting his face with light and shadow. A hum filled the room, deep, resonant, alive, as if the sword itself was breathing, alive with intent. The hunter's eyes narrowed, sharp and unwavering. It responds to your soul, not your strength, she said softly, voice steady but carrying weight. Do not think to wield it lightly. It will reflect everything within you, your courage, your doubts, your fears, and your determination. It will not forgive weakness. Naruto swallowed, grip tightening on the hilt. He could feel the pull, like the sword was alive, testing him, demanding his conviction. He breathed deeply, centering himself, feeling every heartbeat, every pulse of energy. This was more than a weapon. This was a promise, a manifestation of his soul. Orange sparks flickered along the blade, sending ripples of heat across his skin, but not burning. The room seemed to dim around it, the sword's glow overwhelming the fluorescent lights, casting long, twisting shadows across the hunter's face. He whispered, almost reverently, I will protect everyone. The sword shivered, then blazed brighter, a streak of molten orange light surging along its edge, like fire coming alive. It hummed in approval or maybe acknowledgement, and for the first time, Naruto felt the weight of possibility rather than just fear. He wasn't just holding a sword. He was holding himself. She leaned back slightly, eyes never leaving the glowing orange sword. Hold it steady, she instructed, voice calm but firm. Your soul shapes this blade. Every thought, every heartbeat, every ounce of will you pour into it, it will reflect. Naruto nodded, gripping the ruby-red hilt tighter. The orange energy thrummed, almost impatient, like it could sense his hesitation. He inhaled slowly, centering himself, focusing on his goal, protecting everyone. Now, she said, voice low, draw it. Feel it respond to you. Not with muscle, not with force, but with intention. Let it obey your will. Naruto's other hand rose, fingers brushing the invisible edge of the blade. Energy coursed through him, a warm yet sharp tingle that spread from his chest to his fingertips. The blade pulsed, brightening with every conscious thought he forced into it. His fears, the guilt, the self-doubt, the shadow of failure tried to resist, to weigh him down, but he shoved them aside. I must protect them. I cannot fail. The sword vibrated in his hands, orange sparks flaring along the black core, light spilling across the floor and walls. Slowly, he lifted it, cutting a wide arc through the air. The motion wasn't just physical, the blade sang with his soul, leaving a faint trail of molten orange light that lingered for a heartbeat before fading. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of admiration hidden behind her impassive mask. Most hunters' first swings are unsteady, chaotic. They falter, the weapon fights back, they break under its weight. But you are steady. Focused. The sword obeys you because you do not fear yourself. Few can manage that. Naruto exhaled sharply, sweat prickling at his temples, heart hammering. He could feel the blade pulling at him, testing him, demanding every ounce of his soul. And yet, for the first time, he felt not just strain but partnership. The sword wasn't an enemy, wasn't a burden. It was his will made manifest. She took a step closer, voice soft but sharp. Now strike. Naruto's eyes narrowed, mind focusing. He pictured a target, an enemy threatening innocence, a force he could not allow to survive. He swung the blade in a controlled, deliberate arc, the orange energy igniting along its length like fire unleashed. The motion left a streak of brilliance in the air, humming faintly, resonating with his heartbeat. The room seemed to still, holding its breath. He lowered the sword slowly, chest heaving, and felt a surge of clarity. The blade's power wasn't just in the material, its strength was in him, in every choice he had made, every scar he carried, every promise he had kept. She stepped back, hands resting lightly on her knees, eyes sharp but no longer hostile. Good. It obeys because you are complete. Not perfect but unbroken. Do not forget this. Your soul is what fuels it. Lose your focus, and you lose the blade. Naruto's chest swelled, a mixture of exhaustion and awe. He had held death and despair within him for so long, but now he held power shaped from that same pain. A weapon that could protect, could fight, could stand against horrors beyond imagination. And in that moment, he knew that whatever came next, Indra, Jiraiya, or the darkness waiting beyond, he would not face it empty-handed. The hunter's gaze lingered a moment longer, almost imperceptibly approving. Next we test it in motion. Standing still will not be enough. The blade obeys your soul but the world will not stand still. Are you ready for that, Naruto? He swallowed, gripping the hilt tighter, orange energy humming along his arm. I'm ready. The sword pulsed brighter, alive with his intent, and the room seemed to hum in anticipation, waiting for the first strike against a world that demanded everything he had. The hunter's eyes narrowed as they reached the empty square. The orange glow of Naruto's blade painted the cracked pavement, humming softly in resonance with his heartbeat. You've held it still long enough. Now let's see how you wield it in motion, she said, voice calm but sharp. Naruto adjusted his stance, muscles tense yet poised, sword in hand. He felt the hum of energy along the blade, pulsing through his arms, into his chest, aligning with the rhythm of his heartbeat. The orange glow flickered, alive, responding to his intent. He breathed deep, letting the weight of the weapon settle in his hands not as a burden, but as an extension of himself. Without warning, the hunter drew her own katana, steel catching the dim light. She stepped forward, swinging in a wide, fluid arc, testing him. Naruto reacted instinctively, the molten orange blade snapping up to meet hers. Sparks erupted where energy met steel, heat licking his palms, the air vibrating with raw force. It feels like it knows me, he realized, a thrill coursing through his veins. The blade wasn't just a tool, it was a mirror of his will, amplifying what he intended before his body could act. For the first time, defense felt natural, instinctive, almost effortless. Good, she said, stepping back. Now move. Shadows sprouted from every corner, figures darting from alleyways, some lunging, some armed, all testing him. They moved like hunters, precise, deliberate. Naruto shifted, sidestepped, parried, and countered. Each swing of the sword left a trail of orange light, painting his intent in the night air. Each strike reinforced him, knitting his mind and body together with the pulse of the weapon. A shadow lunged from behind. He pivoted, wide arc, the energy searing through the illusion. It disintegrated in sparks, fading like embers. Landing lightly, he felt a rhythm forming sword, body, breath, all moving in harmony. I can do this, he thought, determination surging. I've been broken before but not anymore. I can protect them. I will. Predict, anticipate, commit. Hesitation is death, the hunter's voice cut through, steady and merciless. This time, shadows attacked in unison, faster, unpredictable. Panic flared briefly but the sword pulsed violently in his hands, clarity seeping in like ice melting into fire. He moved not with speed alone, but with precision, each motion deliberate, cutting arcs of molten orange that left trails in the air. The energy hummed, guiding him, bolstering his reflexes. He paused. Something shifted in the shadows, heavier, more deliberate, watching. The hum of the sword intensified, resonating with something deep within him, a warning, a call. Show yourself, he murmured, voice low, steady. I'll fight. A figure emerged, darker than any illusion, fluid in movement. Its eyes glowed faintly, unnatural. The hunter's katana was raised, but she did not intervene. This was his alone. The sword pulsed violently in his grasp, orange veins blazing, as if alive, urging him forward. He centered himself, drawing energy from his core, letting it flow through his arms, into the hilt, along the blade. It was warmth and fire, strength and resolve, all flowing into a single point. And then he struck. A surge of pure energy radiated through the street, carving a streak of molten light through the figure. The force left heat in the air, a tangible pulse, and the shadow faltered, staggering backward. Naruto's chest heaved, adrenaline and the hum of the sword coursing through him. For the first time in years, he felt unstoppable. The hunter's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. Your soul, it answers the blade. Few can summon such resolve under pressure. But this is only the first step. Do not falter. Naruto's breath came in sharp, even bursts. The orange glow pulsed as he tightened his grip, feeling the sword's power sink with his will. Shadows shifted again, smaller now, probing, testing. He felt alive, more alive than he had in years. The fear was still there, lurking, but it no longer dominated him. He remembered the broken boy he had been 4 years ago, the failures, the losses, the endless nights of pain and isolation. Then the fox's chakra, the endless fighting, the survival, the running, the guilt. And now he stood whole. The sword hummed, orange veins bright, alive with him. He could feel every thought, every fear, every hope feeding into it, shaping it. It was not just a weapon, it was an extension of his soul. For the first time, he was no longer broken. He was whole. And his sword, the manifestation of his will, burned brighter than ever. They trained for hours, the orange glow of Naruto's blade slicing through the fading light, sparks dancing off the cracked pavement. Shadows twisted and lunged endlessly, each one more unpredictable than the last. Naruto's muscles ached, sweat stinging his eyes, but the sword hummed in resonance with his heartbeat, guiding him, pushing him, teaching him. When the sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and deep oranges, the hunter lowered her katana. Enough for tonight, she said, voice calm but edged with authority. Her sharp eyes scanned him, noting every tremor, every strain of exhaustion. Your training as a child is evident. Reflexes, intuition, they're ingrained. But there's more you must learn. She sheathed her blade, and the orange glow of Naruto's own sword dimmed, settling into a faint pulse. You'll stay here for at least a week, she continued, her tone clipped, almost disdainful when she said the next word, special abilities. Her lip curled slightly, the hint of disgust clear. You won't need the customary 6 years to mstr a blade, but this week you must become one with it. Fail, and Indra will kill you. Naruto swallowed, exhaustion pressing down, but determination hardening like steel in his chest. He nodded, gripping the hilt of his blade briefly, feeling the residual warmth of energy flowing from it. I understand. Without another word, she motioned him toward a simple mat she had prepared outside. The air was cool, scented faintly with the night, the hum of distant city life muted against the weight of darkness. She had already prepared some sushi, neatly arranged on a small tray, and placed it beside the mat. Eat. Sleep. Tomorrow we continue, she said. Her voice left no room for argument. Naruto sank onto the mat, the blade resting beside him, pulsing faintly with the echo of his soul. He ate slowly, savoring each bite despite the aching in his body. The orange glow reflected softly off the darkened surroundings, and for the first time since the training began, he allowed himself a deep, steadying breath. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of energy still lingering from the training, the hum of his sword a steady presence beside him. He lay down, feeling the subtle warmth of the blade, and finally let sleep claim him, muscles relaxing, mind quieting. The lessons, the energy, the test of will they would continue tomorrow. And with that, the first true night of his rebirth passed under the watchful eyes of the hunter, the sword of his soul pulsing like a heartbeat, a promise, and a warning all at once. Celine walked out to the tree, chest tight, jaw set. If someone had told her she'd be training and helping another half-demon, she would have laughed and then made them choke on their own walls. Gods, she blamed Iin for this. She wouldn't have even considered helping Naruto, she might have killed him where he lay. But something pulled her to him, and she hated it. She wanted to take Rumi and hide, knowing this boy was the other half of the prophecy. He had destroyed the Han moon, and on top of that, she had a feeling he and Rumi were close. They had to be, if the prophecy was to be believed. She wanted to kill this boy that had ruined all her plans, but she couldn't. He reminded her of Iin, his dedication, his undying loyalty, his drive to protect the innocent. All she could see was Iin in him. A selfless soul burdened with the world, yet willing to take on even more if it meant helping others. She remembered Iin. She remembered what he had done, how he had given his life for this boy. Gods, she missed him. He had always been her love. Leaving him had been the worst thing she had ever done. She hated herself and never forgave herself for it. He had been endlessly patient, endlessly kind. He had loved Rumi's mother like a sister, defended Guile when she had wanted to kill him, comforted her in ways no one else could. She remembered that night, the night she killed Guile, and by association Ryu. Iin had sat her down, arms around her shaking, bloody body, whispering that everything was okay. That Ryu wouldn't blame her. And she had pushed him away. Yelled. Blamed him for things he hadn't caused. Pure hate, she had unleashed it all on him. And he had taken it. Never once had he wanted to leave her side. She had forced him away that night, telling him he would only slow her plans down, that Rumi needed her and only her. She never forgot the way he had licked his lips, eyes watering with pain, and whispered, "Okay, see you where the stars go after night." A silly thing they would always say to each other. It had even been part of their wedding vows. She had almost begged him to come back, but she didn't. Now he was gone. Killed by a demon. And she had been forced to leave his body. Now, standing under the tree, Celine felt the weight of all that history pressing down on her. The pain, the love, the regret, it all coiled inside her chest, a storm she couldn't quiet. Her fingers dug into the bark, knuckles whitening. The rough texture grounded her but did not ease the storm within. She could still feel Yin's warmth, even in memory, his steady heartbeat when he held her, the quiet certainty in his voice, the way he had always believed in her, even when she didn't deserve it. She shook her head, trying to push the memories away, but they came anyway. The laughter they had shared, the quiet nights in the small, dimly lit room, the gentle way he brushed her hair from her face when she cried. He had been her anchor, her only tether to something human, something soft. And she had broken him. And now, here she was, preparing to train another half-demon, a boy who carried the same fire, the same fractured humanity that Ian had once sworn to protect. She hated it. She hated herself. Yet there was something in her chest that pushed her forward. Duty? Obligation? Or maybe a fragment of the love she still carried for Ian, the part of her that believed in redemption. She would give this child a chance and see if he was worth Ian's sacrifice. She exhaled slowly, tasting the bitter tang of regret. The wind rustled the leaves overhead, whispering like a voice she almost recognized. Almost. Her eyes fell to the ground, scanning the roots curling into the earth. They reminded her of the way Ian had always anchored her, unseen yet unyielding. And maybe just maybe she could do the same for this boy, for Naruto. But it wouldn't be easy. Every instinct screamed at her to turn away, to abandon this path, to bury herself in anger and grief. Every memory of Yin's sacrifice clawed at her, demanding she honor it not just with words, but with action. She straightened, jaw tight, shoulders squared. "I'll do this," she whispered to herself, voice low but resolute. For him. For everyone he cared about. Even as she said it, a tremor ran through her chest. Love and grief mingled, sharp and raw, but beneath it all, a spark of purpose ignited. She would train Naruto. She would help him survive. She would carry the weight of her past mistakes not as chains, but as lessons. And maybe, in doing so, she could finally find a fragment of the piece she had lost. Celine closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind brush against her face. The past would always ache. Yin's absence would always sting. But the future was still hers to shape. "I'll see you where the stars go in day Yin," she whispered. She walked back into the house, never noticing the Rinnegan eyes watching her. The prophecy is finally in motion. Naruto, I hope you can forgive me. But you were always destined to save this world, not your own. And with that, the sage of the six paths disappeared. Day 1, Awakening the Blade. The first light of dawn cuts through the narrow alleys. Dust rises with every step. My boots scuff against the cracked stone, sword strapped across my back, humming faintly like it's awake, waiting. The hunter's gaze meets mine. "Today, we begin," she says, cold as steel. "Move. Your body and mind must act as one. Without harmony, the sword will betray you." I swing it experimentally. Sparks flare. The molten orange energy feels alive in my hands, pulsing with intent. It's more than a weapon, it's part of me. Wooden dummies, illusions, shifting shadows, they test me relentlessly. Every swing feels like breathing, every block a heartbeat. Pain blooms in my muscles, sweat blinds my eyes, but I keep moving. Night comes, body screaming in exhaustion. Yet, I feel alive. For the first time in years, the fire in me is not fear or hunger, its focus. The blade hums, almost proud. I close my eyes. For once, I am not broken. We ate sushi again. Seriously, does this woman know how to make anything else? Day 2, DSPLN of the soul. Morning comes too soon. My body aches, but I run laps, sword bouncing against my back. The hunter's voice cuts sharply, endurance comes before skill. Your body must obey your will. Speed drills. Shadows attack from impossible angles. My chest heaves. One shadow strikes my arm a scratch, just enough to sting, but I push through. Blindfolded, I rely entirely on instinct. Shadows dart unpredictably, some armed, some lunging. I falter. Pain lances through me. I exhale. Trust the sword. Trust my intent. Each swing sends molten streaks into the air, energy tracing arcs of determination. By nightfall, my body is a vessel of rhythm, my mind sharp. The sword hums in perfect sync. I feel progress actively happening. This woman still won't give me her name, but it's fine. I'm sure my charm will get to her, eventually. Day 3, Fusion of Forces. Chaos is unleashed. The hunter's illusions test the demon chakra wild, uncontrollable bursts of energy. The orange blade hums furiously, pulling energy from within me. An illusion morphs into Rumi. My grip falters. Pain, guilt, fear. The sword dims slightly. Her voice cuts through, control is clarity, not emotion. Focus. I breathe. Let the energy flow. Every emotion, rage, grief, regret becomes fuel. The blade pulses, molten fire tracing every strike. The illusions shatter. I know it's not Rumi for real now, but seeing her face after all this really did a number on me. I hope she's okay. I open my eyes. For the first time, I am not merely holding a weapon, I am one with it. Still eating sushi, about to start a riot. Seriously, have you never heard of ramen? Day 4, Precision and Anticipation. Shadows multiply, splitting, merging, attacking unpredictably. A shadow lunges from behind, I pivot, strike, stumble, a brush of pain. Predict, anticipate, commit, she reminds me. I breathe, feel the blade's pulse, let instinct guide. Every movement leaves streaks of molten orange light. Every strike is deliberate. Then, emotional illusions, friends I failed, villagers harmed, the fox's chaos threatening to consume me. I freeze. Shadows twist into een, whispering regret. Face yourself, the hunter says. Do not let it consume you. I swing. Molten orange energy burns through illusion, fear, doubt, grief. I embrace the chaos, fuse it into resolve. For the first time, seeing my failures do not depress me, they strengthen me. Day 5, The Inner Fire. The hunter pushes me to exhaustion, forcing non-stop combat. Shadows attack relentlessly, faster, smarter, stronger. Midday, sit, she orders, and close your eyes. Listen to the blade. Fuse your soul with its fire. I close my eyes. Memories, failures, victories, the fox chaotic, overwhelming. Pain, rage, love, guilt, they surge through me. The blade flares violently. Energy flows from my core into it. Breath steadies. Open eyes, molten orange energy hums in perfect resonance. Human will, demon energy, and intent fused. I see the fox in my mind, its massive form coiling around me, snarling, testing me, trying to claw into my soul. I do not flinch. Me and Kurama were just getting close when Kaguya came. Seeing my demon energy take on his image brings a tear to my eye. I miss him and hope in making him proud. I let it push, let it test me, then channel it. Energy erupts outward. The illusion shatters, leaving me standing, sword glowing, heartbeat steady. I swear I saw the hunter woman smile at me. In case I'm dead, know that my charisma is still unmatched. Take that, Sasuke, you might have been the pretty boy, but my dashing good looks and rogue charm will always win. Day 6, Mastery in Motion. The hunter nods. Today, we test you. Shadows attack like coordinated opponents. I move, anticipate, strike. Streaks of molten energy trace every motion. Emotional hallucinations push me to the edge. Rumi, failures past and present. I falter, stumble, gasp. But the sword hums, guiding, steadying. Every misstep corrected mid-motion. By nightfall, illusions dissipate. I am exhausted but unbroken. The sword is my anchor, my friend, and it will never let me down. With this in mind, I conquer this training. Later, she summons a massive shadow, a perfect copy of myself, reflecting all my failures, my anger, my fear. It strikes mercilessly, forcing me to dodge, parry, counter, all at once. Sweat mixes with blood from shallow cuts, and I feel the edge of breaking. I felt this same thing at the waterfall of truth, seeing Yami for the first time. He was me, but it was easier to accept when I was naive. Well, I'm no longer naive anymore, but I'm stronger for it. I focus. One swing, molten orange energy flaring cuts through the shadow, dissipating it into sparks. I gasp, sword steady. I will not break, I whisper. I asked for ramen and was promptly denied. And for the record, I was not pouting, I was proudly sulking. There is a difference. Day 7, Trial by Fire. Final day. Wide courtyard. Shadows swirl, faster, smarter, relentless. The sword pulses violently. My chest heaves. Limbs tremble. But I act. Every swing precise, every block deliberate. The molten orange light streaks the air like fire painting the night. Shadows morph into friends, enemies, een. Pain and memory claw at me. The sword flares. I strike. Each motion slices doubt, fear, grief. Hours pass. Sweat stings my eyes. My arms burn, but I don't stop. Every hallucination, every past failure is fuel. I channel rage into focus, grief into precision. The molten orange blade arcs through the night like a comet, illuminating my intent. Finally, silence. The hunter steps forward. Enough. I stand, trembling. Sword glows steadily, alive with my heartbeat. I survived every test, every challenge, every shadow of fear. She nods once. You have fused human will, demon energy, and soul intent. You are one with your blade. I whisper, almost to myself, I will protect them. I will not fail. I will become stronger than I ever imagined. Whole. Strong. Unbreakable. Reflections, the weight of power. Lying under the open sky that night, exhaustion finally catching me, I feel the blade at my side. It hums softly, alive, in harmony with my heartbeat. Every scar, every burn, every sleepless night, it's all part of the forge that created me. I think of Een, of sacrifices made, of those I've failed. And yet, for the first time, I feel a spark of hope. The molten orange blade is not just fire, it's my soul, my will, my promise. I close my eyes. Tomorrow, the world will test me again. But I am ready. The hunter woman gives me a new phone and tell me to call everyone who would be worried. Strangely, Rumi's contact was already added. Oh well, I call and leave a message. I hope she wasn't too worried about me. But a small part hopes she was. She made ramen, my life is complete. Rumi woke in a haze. Sleep clung to her like smoke but never settled into rest. Every time she shut her eyes, she saw Menma, his face drained of color, his chest still, and panic shoved her awake again, breathless and shaking. Practice had fallen apart. The others noticed, of course they did, but no one said it out loud. Not the girls, not even Bobby. They just went through the motions, as if pretending everything was normal could stitch the cracks. But it couldn't. Not when her insides felt hollow, like a song with all the sound cut out. The worst part was how little sense it made. She'd only met him 3 times. 3. That should have meant nothing. And yet the thought of him gone was unbearable, like someone had carved out something she didn't know she needed until it was missing. She couldn't name it. Couldn't reason with it. She only knew that when she remembered the way he smiled at her, so careless, so unaware of the effect he had, her chest ached in a way she didn't have words for. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She blinked at it through the blur of half-sleep. 1 missed call. 1 voicemail. Nobody called her this early. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Then she pressed play. Yo, Rumi, it's Menma. I'm not dead. Surprise. The voice slammed into her like a jolt of electricity. Her breath caught, her stomach dropped. For a second, she couldn't even move. The blanket slid from her shoulders as she jerked upright, trembling. Honestly, I hope I didn't worry you. I was injured, but now I'm fine. I was gonna call sooner, but I lost my phone. Well, anyways, call me back when you get the chance. The line clicked dead. Silence stretched, thick and unreal. Rumi stared at the screen, phone trembling in her grip. Then the dam broke. He was alive. Alive. The words repeated in her head like a mantra, cracking her wide open. The weight she'd been carrying split apart, and everything she'd locked down came rushing out at once. Her shoulders shook as she pressed the phone to her chest, tears sliding hot down her cheeks. She gasped, half laughing, half sobbing, the sound raw and broken. Relief hurt it burned sharp through her ribs, a flood too big for her body to hold. He was alive. She dragged her sleeve across her face, wiping at her tears even as more spilled. But the trembling in her hands was easing, slowly, as if the world itself had steadied. And then the anger came. Hot, immediate, almost welcome. That bstrd. He'd disappeared, left her drowning in silence, let her think the worst. He'd made her feel like this. The next time she saw him, he was going to pay for it. Even so, the corners of her mouth betrayed her. That stubborn smile tugged at her lips and refused to leave. The door creaked open. Mira and Zoey slipped in, their faces drawn with worry. Hey, we heard the racket. Everything okay? Mira asked carefully. She tried to keep it casual, but her eyes lingered on Rumi. The blonde ramen chef had clearly carved his way under her skin. Mira had never seen her like this. And if things didn't turn around soon, she knew the Idol Awards would be in danger for all of them. Rumi swiped at her face again and looked up, smiling for real for the first time in a week. Look, she said, breathless, shoving the phone toward them. She hit play. Menma's voice filled the room again. Zoey squealed, bouncing in place. See? I told you he'd be fine. She threw her arms around Rumi, who let out a broken laugh and clutched the phone tighter. Mira let her shoulders drop and allowed a small smile to tug at her lips. Maybe things were finally turning. You should invite him to dinner with us tonight, she suggested. Rumi's cheeks flushed, and she ducked her head, nodding. Fine, she muttered, a grin slipping out. It'll make it easier to throttle him for making me worry. Naruto froze mid-step, a shiver crawling down his spine. Some deep instinct told him to run, like he'd just walked into the crosshairs of an angry woman. He frowned, shook it off. Weird. Then he turned to face what was left of his shop. Boards snapped, walls leaning, the sign hanging sideways like it had finally given up. He let out a long sigh. Welp, that's gonna take a while, he muttered, hands on his hips. Good thing I don't need the cash right now. Still, the sight dug at him. This had been his spot, his corner of the world, and now it looked like the war had chewed it up and spit it back out. He shoved the thought away before it could get heavy. Because one truth stood above all else. The ramen gods were calling. And he needed ramen. Bad. He picked his way through the wreckage, boots crunching on glass and splintered wood. Most of the kitchen was gone, burned out, collapsed, but he crouched, brushed aside debris, and found the old counter. There it was. The hatch. His secret stash. The bunker. With a grunt, he yanked it open. And what waited below nearly brought tears to his eyes. Rows upon rows, stacks upon stacks, instant ramen, untouched by fire or blade. Thousands of cups, sealed and waiting. Naruto's grin stretched wide, boyish, the first real grin in days. Ramen heaven, he whispered, almost reverent. The world could burn, but this? This was eternal. He nearly fell headfirst climbing down, hands already ripping the wrapper off the first cup he touched. Then he stopped, looked around at the mountain of noodles, and burst out laughing loud, unguarded, the kind of laugh he hadn't let out in too long. Oh man, the ramen gods really do love me. He set water to boil with the ease of ritual. When he slurped down the first mouthful, the world softened. The ruins, the battles, the ache in his chest, none of it mattered. For a few seconds, it was just him, ramen, and peace. Ridiculous, maybe. Just instant noodles. But it felt like home. Leaning back against the counter, steam curling around his face, he pulled out his new phone. The screen lit up. A text. Naruto frowned. The hunter had warned him about these messages without voices, just words. Useful, sure, but weird. He still didn't get why she hadn't just given him a flip phone. His first one had been perfect, buttons, calls, no apps. He shuddered. Smartphones were designed to make you feel dumb, and if that was the point, it worked. Still, he tapped it open. From Rumi. Can you meet me at the Huntrix Hotel? Naruto froze, phone heavy in his hand. Could be nothing, just her wanting to talk. Or maybe it was more. He slurped ramen, thinking. What would his teacher say? Irika, lecture him about being respectful boring. Jiraiya, perverted advice he couldn't use. Kakashi was cool. So he had to say something cool. Naruto typed quickly, channeling his inner Kakashi. Did you say something? He grinned, satisfied. Until the reply came back. 3 question marks. Naruto groaned, smacking his forehead against the wall. Of course that wouldn't work. He wasn't talking face to face, it was text. Stupid phone, he muttered, silently praying to the ramen gods for wisdom. They were silent. 3 minutes and 2 more bowls later, he gave up on coolness and typed the simplest thing he could. What time? Satisfied, he nodded. Not hip, but workable. Somewhere in the Pure Lands, Kakashi was banging his own head against the wall. Naruto, sometimes I wonder if you learned anything from me. A reply lit up. Is 7 okay? Naruto smiled, warmth bubbling in his chest. Of course. Naruto trudged home, body worn out but his chest buzzing with a nervous excitement he couldn't quite smother. Almost dying had a way of cutting through the noise, making him realize what actually mattered. And right now, it wasn't ramen, or the wreckage of his shop, or even the fight still looming with Indra. It was her. Rumi. They'd only met 3 times. 3. That wasn't enough to build anything, not really. And yet, when he thought of her, it felt like she'd been walking beside him forever. Maybe it was because she carried the same kind of heaviness he did. Secrets. Hurt. That look in her eyes that said she'd been fighting battles nobody else could see. He knew that look. He'd lived it. And maybe that was why he couldn't stop thinking about her. Naruto scratched the back of his head, a sheepish smile tugging at his mouth. Hey, Rumi and me, huh? His imagination ran off before he could stop it. He pictured her rolling her eyes at him across a kitchen table, scolding him for bragging too much. He saw her walking beside him down some quiet street, shoulders brushing, her calling him an idiot when he reached for a 5th bowl of ramen. He imagined her laughing freely, not the small guarded smiles she wore now, but a real laugh, the kind that would light up her whole face. His chest ached just thinking about it. Then reality crashed in, hot and sharp. She probably didn't see him that way. Why would she? She was strong, appealing, talented, an idol who carried herself like someone the world needed. And him? He was a tired shinobi, still clinging to instant ramen and fumbling with a phone he barely understood. He sighed, shaking his head. Yeah, she probably just thinks I'm some idiot who makes her laugh. And yet, even if that was true, he couldn't shake the connection. The more he pictured surviving Indra, the more he dreamed about maybe settling down, the more she was there. Always there. Like his future didn't make sense without her in it. Naruto shoved his hands in his pockets, smirking faintly at the night sky. Guess it's fine. Even if she never feels that way, I'll still be there. I'll still help her carry it. The ramen shop dream was gone, buried under ash. Maybe something else waited. Writing, maybe, like pervy Sage always wanted. Not the smut, but something real. Something about his life, his battles, and maybe just maybe the story of a girl who made him feel like the weight on his shoulders wasn't his alone anymore. He laughed softly to himself, dragging a hand down his face. Man, if she ever found out what I was thinking, she'd kill me. But for the first time in years, the future didn't feel impossible. And no matter how he pictured it, whether she returned those feelings or not, Rumi was always there. Naruto stood in the middle of his tiny room, clothes scattered everywhere like a storm had blown through. He paced back and forth, running both hands through his hair until it stuck up in every direction. I can't look like a bum. What if she shows up all dressed up? But, he grabbed one of his cleaner jackets, held it against himself in the mirror, then groaned and tossed it on the bed. What if it's just 5 minutes of talking and then she leaves? Then I'll look like some idiot who overdressed. He yanked open a drawer, scowled at the wrinkled orange hoodie staring back at him, and slammed it shut. Nope. Not happening. She'd never let me live that down. The clock glared at him. 6:30, his stomach twisted like he'd swallowed a kunai. I can't even buy anything new now. Why didn't I think of this earlier? Stupid, stupid. He banged his forehead lightly against the wall, then winced and rubbed the sore spot. For a moment he just stood there, staring at the mess, heart pounding. Then it hit him. Obvious. Dumb. With a flicker of demon energy, his clothes shimmered and shifted, fabric reshaping itself. He looked down, suddenly dressed in fitted black jeans, bright orange sneakers, and a crisp white button-up. Naruto laughed, shaking his head. How could I forget I can do that? His chest felt lighter, like a weight he hadn't noticed had finally lifted. When he stepped into the streets, he carried that lightness with him. People he passed glanced his way, breaking into smiles. Some nodded, some waved. Naruto blinked, puzzled, but wondered if maybe his good mood was spilling over. He smiled back, awkward but genuine, and their smiles only grew. By the time he reached the Huntrix Hotel, he stopped dead on the sidewalk. The place was enormous, all glass and steel, towering above the block with its giant logo blazing against the night sky. His jaw dropped. Whoa. No way. He stood there for a full minute, gawking, before forcing himself through the revolving doors. Inside, the lobby gleamed. The floor shone like polished stone, chandeliers glittered overhead, and staff in sharp uniforms moved like they'd been trained to glide instead of walk. Naruto felt the weight of a dozen eyes settle on him instantly. His palms went clammy. He shuffled to the front desk, trying not to notice the stares, though they prickled across his skin. The man behind the desk straightened as Naruto approached, his polite smile tinged with surprise. Can I help you, sir? Naruto swallowed, his throat dry. Rumi invited me, he said quickly, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. The silence around him pressed closer. He glanced sideways. Everyone in the lobby was staring at him. His stomach flipped. What's their problem? Then his gaze caught the tall mirror behind the desk, and he froze. Because reflected there just a step behind him stood Rumi. Arms crossed, lips tugged into a smile that was equal parts relief and mischief. Naruto's breath hitched. All the panic, the rushing thoughts, the nervous rehearsals gone in an instant. He'd been so wound up about how to look, how to act. And there she was, smiling at him like she'd been waiting all along. Naruto spun around so fast he nearly tripped. Rumi. Hey. Wow, hi, his voice cracked, and he coughed, trying again. I mean yo. What's up? She just smiled at him, steady and unreadable, arms folded. Naruto laughed nervously, scratching the back of his neck. So you're here. Obviously. And I'm here. Which yeah, makes sense, since you invited me. Ha. Rumi tilted her head slightly, still smiling. What? Do I got something on my face? He asked quickly. Is it my hair? Did my shirt CRP, don't tell me I buttoned it crooked. He fiddled with his shirt, panicked. Her laugh slipped out, quiet, like she hadn't meant to. You really made me think you were dead, idiot. Naruto froze, the grin sliding off his face. Ah yeah. Sorry about that. He rubbed the back of his neck again, sheepish. Didn't really have a chance to text back while I was bleeding out, you know. Her eyes softened, though her smile stayed sharp. You don't get to scare me like that again. Naruto swallowed. The weight of it hit him harder than a punch. I won't. Promise. Rumi exhaled, the relief breaking through for a moment before she masked it again. Good. She glanced toward the desk clerk, who was pretending not to stare. You realize everyone's watching, right? Naruto stiffened. Wait, because of me? Her smirk tugged wider. Because you're loud. What, hey? I wasn't that loud. His face went red, voice carrying across the lobby despite himself. Rumi arched an eyebrow, laughter bubbling out at his expense. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. And now you're even louder. Naruto's ears burned. You're enjoying this way too much. Maybe, she said lightly, brushing past him toward the elevators. Naruto scrambled to catch up, still flustered but grinning despite himself. You could have at least said hi before sneaking up on me. I did, she replied smoothly, hitting the call button. You just weren't paying attention. Rumi was nervous. Too nervous. She darted around the penthouse in a frenzy, straightening pillows, wiping the counter again even though it already gleamed, fussing over the little things nobody else would ever notice. It had to be perfect. Almost losing Menma, that brush with emptiness had made her realize just how much he meant to her. It was weird, unexpected, maybe even reckless. But it was true. And she wouldn't waste her chance. She didn't even know if he felt the same. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he never would. She told herself that was fine, that she'd be okay with being just friends. But still, her hands shook as she adjusted the table setting for the third time. Behind her, Mira groaned. Rumi, stop cleaning. It's fine. Zoey leaned against the wall with a sly grin. Mira, let her. She's gotta make it perfect for her boyfriend. She sang the last word like it was part of a chorus. Rumi froze mid-swipe, heat rushing to her face. He's not my boyfriend. He's just a friend. Zoey smirked. Is that why you're inviting him to dinner? Mira chuckled, folding her arms. Exactly. You don't polish the whole penthouse for just a friend. Rumi huffed, turning away so they wouldn't see how red her cheeks were. You two are impossible. Myra's smile softened as she watched Rumi bustle around. She hadn't seen her this alive, this lighter in weeks. And if it took a boy to put that glow back in her face, then maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. Rumi was nervous. Too nervous. She darted around the penthouse in a frenzy, straightening pillows, wiping the counter again even though it already gleamed, fussing over the little things nobody else would ever notice. It had to be perfect. Almost losing Menma, that brush with emptiness had made her realize just how much he meant to her. It was strange, unexpected, maybe reckless. But it was true. And she wasn't going to waste her chance. She didn't even know if he felt the same. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he never would. She told herself that was fine, that she'd be okay with being just friends. But still, her hands shook as she adjusted the table setting for the third time. Behind her, Mira groaned. Rumi, stop cleaning. It's fine. Zoey leaned against the wall with a sly grin. Mira, let her. She's gotta make it perfect for her boyfriend. She stretched the last word out in a sing-song. Rumi froze mid-swipe, heat rushing to her face. He's not my boyfriend. He's just a friend. Zoey smirked. Is that why you're inviting him to dinner? Mira chuckled, folding her arms. Exactly. You don't polish the whole penthouse for just a friend. Rumi huffed, turning away so they wouldn't see how red her cheeks were. You two are impossible. Mira only smiled softly. She hadn't seen Rumi this alive in weeks. If it took a boy to bring some light back to her, then maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Rumi glanced at the clock. 6:55. Her pulse kicked up, her hands restless as she smoothed down her dress for the third time. One last look in the mirror, she tilted her head, studied herself, and allowed a nervous smile. She looked good. Not perfect, but good. She could live with that. And then she was running, feet flying down the stairwell, her heart racing to match. 10 steps at a time, she hardly noticed the blur of floors passing until the lobby doors swung open and the lights hit her eyes. She stopped dead. There he was. Menma. Alive. The air left her lungs in a gasp. He was standing by the desk, smiling, really smiling, wide and unguarded. It wasn't the half-hearted grin he wore when he was hiding something. It wasn't the forced bravado of a fighter pretending the weight on his back wasn't crushing him. This was different. His eyes, bright amethyst, glittering, were full of joy. And for the first time, he looked free. Rumi's chest clenched. It wasn't just her who noticed. The whole lobby seemed to shift around him. Strangers turned their heads, their expressions softening as though they were catching some invisible warmth off him. Even the tired desk clerk straightened, a small smile tugging at his mouth. Menma radiated. Not power, not menace, not the heavy aura that sometimes rolled off him when the shadows pressed too close. This was something else entirely. Something lighter. A piece of him she hadn't known existed. And she knew in her bones how rare it was. How fragile. Because Menma wasn't someone the world allowed to be free. He carried too much, fought too much, bled too much. To see him like this, even just standing in a lobby, his smile unguarded, felt like a miracle. Her throat tightened. She hadn't realized until now just how much she'd wanted this, to see him not as a fighter, or a survivor, or a shadow of himself, but simply him. For a second, she almost forgot the anger she'd been holding on to. Almost. Her breath caught again, her pulse racing harder than it had on the stairs. She wanted to move, to call his name, but her legs hesitated. Because the truth was, she was afraid. Afraid that if she blinked, if she stepped too close, he might vanish like smoke, just another cruel dream. But he didn't. He stood there in the light of the lobby, smiling like the world had finally given him a moment's mercy. And Rumi knew she couldn't waste hers. Her hands curled into fists to keep from shaking as she stepped forward, weaving through the people drawn into his orbit. Her chest still burned with the memory of nights spent gasping awake, certain he was gone. And yet, here he was, radiant, alive, real. And if she had her way, she wouldn't let him slip away again. Menma was mid-fumble with the clerk when the mirror behind the desk caught his eye. His stomach dropped. There she was. Rumi. Arms folded, lips curved in a smile that was both soft and sharp, steady in a way that made his nerves double. For a heartbeat, he thought his knees might give out. He spun around so fast he almost tripped over his sneakers. Rumi. Hey. Wow, hi, his voice cracked, and he coughed, forcing out a shaky, yo. What's up? She almost laughed. Almost. The way he scrambled for composure, it should have been ridiculous. But all she could see was the grin still tugging at his mouth, the brightness in his eyes that hadn't dulled even as panic lit his face. So she smiled at him. Calm, steady, letting him twist a little longer under her silence. He scratched at his neck, words tumbling out too fast. So you're here. Obviously. And I'm here. Which yeah, makes sense, since you invited me. Ha. Still, she stayed silent, tilting her head. What? Do I got something on my face? Is it my hair? Did my shirt? He tugged at his buttons in a fluster, panic filling the air. Her lips curved, and the laugh finally broke free. You really made me think you were dead, idiot. The words came softer than she meant, but they landed. His grin faltered, his shoulders slumped. Shame flickered across his face. Ah yeah. Sorry 'bout that. Her smile held, though her chest burned. Relief and anger coiled together, too tangled to pull apart. She shook her head slowly. You don't get to scare me like that again. Then he looked at her, really looked. No fumbling, no jokes. Just him, serious and earnest. I won't. Promise. Something inside her gave way, the tension of the last week cracking just enough to let air in. She wanted to believe him. Needed to. So she let the mask slide back on, her smile smoothing into place. Everyone staring, she murmured, tilting her chin toward the clerk. Menma stiffened. Wait, because of me? Her smirk tugged wider. Because you're loud. His face flushed. What, hey? I wasn't that loud. The irony broke her. A laugh spilled out, real this time, startling her as much as it startled him. She hadn't laughed like that in a week. Come on, idiot, she said, brushing past him toward the elevators. Dinner's waiting. She didn't look back, but she heard him scramble to catch up, still muttering about how he wasn't that loud. And for once, her smile didn't feel forced. Relief still burned hot, but tonight, it didn't hurt. Indra paced restlessly through the underworld, the clack of his shinobi sandals echoing sharply on the stone stairs. Every step radiated impatience and menace. He approached Jiraiya, eyes glinting. The demon lives, but he's injured. I'll fix this in a week. Jiraiya's fire crackled along his form. He fought you. And injured you. Indra the Almighty, almost slain by a small demon. A fool. Indra gritted his teeth. A hunter intervened. I need to make sure that doesn't happen again. Jiraiya's smirk was sharp. Oh, now you need my help. Tell me, Indra, how powerful is he? Indra's lips curled into a sly smile. He could give you a run for your money if he still had chakra. Even now he's a threat. Jiraiya paused, considering. Are you going to kill him? Indra chuckled, low and dangerous. After I get what I want, I'll merge our souls and return home. His soul. Jiraiya's tone was serious, wary. My father, he was a god. When he created me and my brother, he split his essence between us. Alone, neither of us can reach godhood. Together we are unstoppable. Some balance his father thought to enforce, it won't last long. His smile was cruel, calculating. Jiraiya scoffed, flames dancing along his form. Very well. I'll send Juno and his team to slow the hunters for you. Indra's eyes gleamed. He leaned closer, voice barely a whisper. Ashura, soon, you'll be mine. And with that, he vanished into the shadows. Rumi walked him into their penthouse, the door swinging open on polished floors and wide windows that looked out over the city. Menma stopped just inside, jaw dropping. Wow, it's big. Like really big. Rumi blinked, heat creeping into her cheeks. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, suddenly self-conscious. Well, I guess. He turned in a slow circle, taking in the gleaming kitchen, the huge sectional couch, the balcony beyond. This would feels like a mini palace or something. Are you sure I'm allowed to be here? Rumi laughed under her breath, shaking her head. You're a guest. Relax. Just then, Mira peeked out from the kitchen, arms folded, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. Oh, Rumi, you're finally here with Naruto said, Naruto, just as Rumi said, Menma, Naruto shrunk under her questioning gaze. He whispered in her ear, I'll explain later. She shivered, the close contact making her face heat up. Zoey popped her head up from behind the counter with a grin like a cat about to pounce. Oh, Rumi brought her boyfriend home. Rumi froze, face going crimson. He's not. Naruto gasped astonished, Rumi. How could you not tell me we were dating, smiling at her fatally reddening face. Rumi felt like she wanted to melt in the floor. She swore she would get Zoey back. Mira just sighed, shaking her head. Dinner's almost ready. Try not to scare the neighbors with your voices before we even eat. Naruto kicked off his sneakers at Rumi's request and followed her further inside, still gawking at the penthouse. The chandelier above the dining table sparkled like 1,000 stars, and the wide glass windows spilled city light across the polished floor. Man, he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck, I feel like I should have brought a gift or something. Back home, a place like this was for daimyo or Hokage. You sure I'm not trespassing? Rumi rolled her eyes, though her blush lingered. You're fine. Just don't break anything. Naruto nodded, lowering his voice as he added, you know this is the first time anyone's ever invited me to a house dinner. So I really appreciate it. He smiled, then a warm, unguarded smile, and Rumi swore her heart was going to burst. She smiled back, softer than she meant to. It's no problem, she said quickly, before turning on her heel toward the kitchen. The moment she was gone, Zoey appeared out of nowhere, grabbing Naruto's arm and tugging him toward the living room with all the subtlety of a thunderclap. Okay, spill. How did you two meet? Or was it when we all went to eat at Healer Han's? Her eyes were bright, hungry for gossip. Naruto scratched the back of his head, sheepish. I think that's Rumi's story to tell, he said. Zoey groaned dramatically, flopping across the couch like a scolded cat. Ugh, you're no fun. She'll just cut out all the good parts. Rumi's voice cut sharp from the kitchen. Zoey. The warning was enough to make Zoey snap her mouth shut mid-sentence, though her grin didn't fade. Naruto tilted his head, curious, but he caught the quick look Rumi threw his way when she stepped back into view. Serious, protective. It made him let the question drop. Mira emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of steaming dumplings. She set it carefully on the table, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp, lingering on Naruto for a moment too long. Some stories, she said calmly, aren't meant for Zoey's commentary anyway. Zoey pouted but bounced off the couch, following Mira to the table. Fine, fine. But one of you owes me details later. Naruto chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. You people are nosier than the old ladies back in my village. Rumi brushed past him with a bowl of soup, setting it down. Their eyes met briefly, and for a heartbeat, something soft passed between them, unspoken, fragile. Then she quickly looked away, cheeks pink as she slid into her chair. So, Naruto, Mira said once they were all seated, her tone even but her gaze sharp. What are you going to do about the shop? Naruto's chopsticks froze halfway to his mouth. For a moment, the table's chatter dulled, his shoulders dipping as the light in his eyes dimmed. Probably shut it down for good, he admitted quietly. With the damage it'd take a fortune to rebuild. And even if I did, it never really made much money. The faint twinkle in his expression carried more sadness than humor, a wistful glint that vanished as quickly as it came. Rumi's jaw tightened. She shot Mira a glare across the table, heat burning in her brown eyes. Mira shifted back slightly, guilt flashing across her face. I didn't mean. No, it's fine, Naruto cut in gently, forcing a small smile. It's just sentimental, you know. I inherited it from my old boss when she passed. So seeing it gone like that, it hurts. Makes me feel like I failed her somehow. The weight of his words settled over the table. Rumi's glare didn't waver, protective and unyielding, as if daring anyone else to press him further. Silence clung to the table for a heartbeat too long. The steam rising from the soup bowls curled lazily in the quiet, carrying the rich scent of garlic and soy. Rumi's fingers tightened around her chopsticks. She wanted to speak something, anything, but the knot in her throat wouldn't let her. Her glare toward Mira softened into something else entirely as her gaze lingered on Naruto. Mira lowered her eyes, her voice small. I shouldn't have asked like that. I'm sorry. Naruto shrugged, the faint smile on his face steadier now. It's okay. I've known losses a lot bigger than a shop, so it's not the end of the line. He paused, then leaned back a little, mischief creeping into his tone. Besides, I've still got the ultimate fallback, my Naruto emergency instant ramen bunker. Zoey choked on her drink, sputtering into her napkin. Wait, you're telling me you actually hoard noodles in bulk? Like some kind of apocalypse stash? Naruto sat straighter, puffing out his chest in mock pride. Not just any stash. Thousands of cups, perfectly preserved, waiting for the day destiny calls. Truly ramen heaven. Zoey burst into laughter, Mira shook her head in disbelief, and even Rumi couldn't stop the small, helpless smile tugging at her lips. Her chest eased as the tension broke, warmth blooming in place of the knot that had been strangling her minutes before. Naruto caught her smile and gave her one back. Simple, genuine, like the whole exchange had been just for the two of them. Zoey leaned across the table, eyes sparkling with mischief. So what you're saying is if the world ends, you'll survive on ramen while the rest of us starve? Naruto smirked, twirling his chopsticks between his fingers. Survive? I'll thrive. You'll be knocking on my bunker door begging for miso flavor. Zoey laughed so hard she nearly tipped over in her chair. Rumi, you hear this? Your boyfriend's planning for the noodle apocalypse. Rumi groaned, covering her face with one hand. He's not my— She stopped herself mid-protest when she caught Naruto grinning at her from across the table, that same teasing sparkle in his eyes. Her heart skipped, heat rising to her cheeks. Mira, trying to hide her amusement, sipped her tea calmly. If ramen is the currency of the future, I guess we'll all be indebted to him. Naruto leaned forward, elbows on the table, dead serious. Exactly. The ramen gods will always provide. Believe it. That earned a chorus of laughter from all sides, even Rumi, though she tried to hide it behind her sleeve. The heaviness from earlier seemed to melt away with every smile, the air around the table lighter, warmer. For a fleeting moment, Naruto let himself think, maybe this is what family dinners are supposed to feel like. Dinner was going better than Rumi could have hoped. Naruto, chopsticks waving for emphasis, launched into story after story of his old pranks back in Konoha. He told them about painting the Hokage monument in broad daylight, about rigging chalkboard erasers to drop on unsuspecting teachers, and about the time he, accidentally, turned the academy hallways into an indoor slip-and-slide. Zoey was in stitches, clutching her stomach with tears forming at the corners of her eyes. You're kidding, you actually did that? Naruto grinned, proud of himself. Yep. Slipped and skidded all the way down myself, too. Totally worth it. Even Mira, usually the composed one, had warmed up. She shook her head with a small smile. You must have been an absolute menace. Naruto puffed out his chest. Not menace, genius. Takes a lot of planning to pull off masterpieces like that. Rumi tried to hide it, but her eyes kept drifting to him. The way his whole body leaned into the story, animated and alive. The way he spoke with his hands, careless but earnest. The way his laughter wasn't just sound, it was light. And it hit her then, sharp and terrifying, how much she'd missed that light when she thought he was gone. How the silence in her chest had felt unbearable, like she'd lost something she hadn't even known she needed until it was ripped away. Her heart whispered what her mind refused to name, I think I'm falling. She sipped her drink, hid her smile, and let the others laugh, all while her gaze drifted back to him, helplessly. But the longer she watched, the more details carved themselves into her memory. The crinkle at the corner of his eyes when he grinned. The way his fingers tapped absently against the table when he was excited. The boyish tilt of his head when he teased Zoey. Little things no one else seemed to notice. Things she wanted to memorize. To hold on to. Her chest tightened with a quiet ache. She had no idea if he felt the same, or if he ever would. But in that moment, it didn't matter. Because the simple truth was that he was here, alive, smiling at her across the table. And after everything, the panic, the fear, the sleepless nights, that was enough. When Naruto caught her looking and flashed that grin, boyish and bright, her heart gave her away. She dropped her gaze quickly, cheeks burning, praying no one else had seen. But Mira had. Mira always noticed. Mira saw the way Rumi looked at him. It wasn't hard to miss the lingering glances, the way her smile softened when he laughed, the warmth in her eyes she tried so hard to hide. Rumi looked conflicted, yes, but also lighter. Happy in a way Mira hadn't seen in far too long. They were good for each other. Mira could admit that, even if Rumi hadn't yet. He pulled her out of herself, gave her something to cling to beyond the stage lights and endless pressure. And Rumi, in turn, gave him something he seemed starved for: belonging. But even as Mira watched them, a flicker of unease stirred in her chest. Something about Naruto unsettled her, though she couldn't place it. It wasn't anything he said. His stories were harmless enough, his grin disarming. But there was a weight under his laughter, an undercurrent in his presence, like a storm waiting just beyond the horizon. She pushed the thought aside for now, schooling her face into a quiet smile as Zoey begged for another prank story. But Mira filed the feeling away, because if there was one thing she'd learned, it was that instincts like hers were rarely wrong. Mira swirled her tea slowly, her eyes narrowing just a fraction as she studied him. Then, almost casually, she asked, "So, Naruto, what about your family? Do they live back in your village?" The question caught him mid-bite. He froze for a second, chopsticks hovering, before setting them down gently. His grin softened, not gone, just quieter. "I wouldn't know," he said simply. "I was an orphan from the day I was born. Never met my parents." Zoe's laughter faded, the table dipping into silence. Even Myra's calm composure faltered, her lips pressing together. But Naruto's voice didn't shake. If anything, it carried a strange steadiness, almost proud. "I don't know much about them. What I do know is they gave their lives so I could have mine. And that's enough for me. Makes me want to live in a way they'd be proud of, you know." He smiled, then bright, boyish, unbroken. Not to hide the sadness, but to carry it. Rumi's chest tightened. Her fingers curled around her chopsticks, the knot in her throat too heavy to swallow. But Mira wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "That must have been hard. Growing up with no family, no parents to guide you. What kept you going?" Naruto scratched the back of his head, chuckling softly. "Guess I just had this dumb dream. Wanted to be more. Someone people couldn't ignore. When you're an orphan, people don't really see you. So I decided I'd make them." Myra's eyes narrowed further. "And now? That dream's gone. What keeps you moving now?" His smile dimmed, softening into something quieter, heavier. "Now it's about protecting the people around me. Making sure they don't feel the way I did." His eyes flickered briefly toward Rumi before dropping back to his plate. Her breath caught, warmth blooming in her chest despite the tension. Still Mira pressed. "You talk like you've lost everything, yet you sit here smiling like it's all fine. That doesn't add up. People don't just carry scars like that and laugh through dinner." Naruto's demeanor shifted. His grin faded, his voice rougher. "Do you expect me to break? Because I've done that before. I've cried until my eyes were rivers. But to give up?" His jaw tightened. "Never. That'd be an insult to anyone who died. And who died for you to act this way?" Mira pressed, sharper still. "Mira, enough," Rumi snapped, her voice ringing across the table. But Naruto's answer came, low and solemn, too many to count. Mira leaned in, her words cutting. Too many or you've forgotten. That broke something in him. Naruto shoved his chair back and stood, the legs scraping against the floor. His voice rose, hot and raw. I understand you grilling me. I get that you're looking out for Rumi. Hell, I even get that you might not trust me or like me at this point. But don't you dare, he stabbed a finger at her, his eyes blazing, don't you dare accuse me of not caring for my comrades. In one motion, he yanked his shirt over his head and let it fall. The air left the room. His body was a map of violence, long, brutal scars carved deep into his skin. One ran straight through his chest, jagged, like he'd once been stabbed clean through the heart. Another slashed across his ribs, the kind that would have collapsed a lung. Dozens more marred him, burns, cuts, old wounds that should have killed him. Rumi's breath hitched. Zoe's hand flew to her mouth. Even Mira, for once, looked stunned into silence. Naruto's voice cut through, steady but ragged. This is why I don't break so easily. I've felt pain. I've felt hopeless. And I've buried more friends than I can count. Some didn't even leave enough behind for a funeral. The silence after was deafening. He looked at them all, then finally at Rumi, his voice softening. I'm sorry, Rumi. I've ruined dinner for you all. I'll call you, okay? And with that, he turned and stormed out, the door slamming shut behind him. The door slammed, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Rumi's chest heaved, her hands trembling on the table. Then she rounded on Mira, eyes blazing. What the hell was that about? Her voice cracked with fury, raw and sharp. Mira didn't flinch. She set her cup down carefully, her expression as stony as her tone. He's hiding something, Rumi. I know he is. Rumi's fists clenched at her sides. And that gives you the right to tear him apart? To push him until he had to, she broke off, the image of Naruto's scarred chest searing behind her eyes. Her voice dropped, trembling. You saw him. That wasn't a lie. That was pain. Mira's gaze softened, but only slightly. Pain doesn't erase secrets. It proves he's dangerous. Across the table, Zoe sat in silence, her wide eyes fixed on the door. Her hands were still clenched in her lap, knuckles white, her usual energy drained to nothing. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stared, pale and shaken, like Naruto's scars were still burned into her vision. Rumi's voice shook, anger and heartbreak knotted together. You don't get it. You don't see him. All you saw was danger. I saw someone who's been through hell and is still standing. And you treated him like a liar. Mira's jaw tightened. Because I don't trust what doesn't add up. And until I know who he really is, I won't. Rumi's breath caught, fury burning hotter. She wanted to scream, to shove Mira, to tear out of the room and chase after him. Instead she whispered, low and shaking. You don't have to know him like I do. You just have to trust me. The silence that followed pressed heavy on all three of them, Zoe mute and pale, Mira stone-faced, and Rumi trembling with fire. Rumi shoved back from the table, her chair scraping across the floor. She didn't wait for Mira's reply. Didn't look at Zoe's pale, shaken face. Her heart was pounding too loud in her ears. She tore out of the penthouse, the door slamming behind her as she bolted into the cool night air. The city lights blurred around her as she ran, chest tight, searching. Then she heard it. A faint, tired sigh carried down from above. Her eyes snapped upward. There he was. Naruto, crouched on the edge of a nearby rooftop, shirt still crumpled in his hand, the scars on his body faint in the glow of the city. He wasn't looking at the streets or the chaos below. He was staring at the stars, his expression caught somewhere between sorrow and peace. Rumi's breath hitched. For a moment she just stood there, chest heaving, drinking in the sight of him. Relief flooded her, but so did something else, a trembling ache in her heart that had no words. She swallowed hard, then cupped her hands around her mouth. Naruto. His head turned at the sound, eyes widening in surprise. Then, slowly, his lips curved into the faintest, fragile smile. Rumi's breath hitched. Without thinking, she jumped, vaulting up to the roof to join him. The night air whipped against her skin as she landed a few feet away. He didn't turn. Didn't speak. His shoulders sagged under a weight she couldn't see. So she sat beside him, the city sprawling beneath them, glowing and alive. For a long while, they just listened to it, the hum of traffic, the faint echo of music drifting from an open window, the soft hiss of the wind between buildings. Finally, Naruto spoke, voice low and frayed at the edges. "She's right, you know. You don't know me." Rumi's heart clenched. She turned her head toward him, steady despite the ache in her chest. "That's okay," she whispered. "She doesn't know about my other side either." She lifted her hand, letting her patterns glow faintly in the moonlight. A secret she'd kept hidden from almost everyone. Naruto's head turned, his eyes catching the shimmer. For the first time since dinner, he smiled, small, tired, but real. "It's different," he murmured, voice carrying the weight of belief he didn't want to have. "And you know it." Rumi swallowed hard. "Different doesn't mean worse. It means we understand each other more than they ever could." Naruto exhaled slowly, his shoulders easing just a little. "You say that like it's simple. But you don't know how heavy it gets. How easy it'd be for someone to look at me and only see a monster." His words lingered, bitter and sharp. For the first time, his walls cracked, the boy who laughed over ramen showing the man who carried ghosts. Rumi's lips curved into the faintest, trembling smile. "It's okay. You don't have to tell me." Naruto let out a jagged sigh, dragging a hand over his face. "But I want to. I don't know what we are, or what you even want out of us, but if we're going to keep being friends, you deserve to know." He hesitated, then continued, voice rough. "Back where I'm from, I wasn't just some kid with a dream. I was hated. People looked at me like I didn't deserve to exist. Every day was a fight to prove I mattered." His fist clenched on his knee, the scars across his knuckles pale under the starlight. "I lost friends more than I can count. Teachers, comrades, people who believed in me. Sometimes I wonder if I only survived because fate thought it'd be funny to keep me around." Rumi's patterns pulsed faintly, her chest aching as if her body itself was echoing his pain. He laughed then, jagged and hollow. "And the scars? They're not the worst part. The worst part is waking up every morning and realizing I can't hear their voices anymore. Can't remember their laughs. Just silence. Like they never existed." Her throat tightened, her eyes stinging. Naruto finally turned to her, his eyes glassy but fierce. "So yeah, Myra's right, I'm hiding things. But it's not because I don't trust you. It's because I don't want you to see me the way they did. As a monster. As something broken." The city hummed beneath them, neon lights flickering against his face, but the rooftop felt like another world, just the two of them, bound by truths too heavy for anyone else to carry. The city hummed below them, neon spilling across the skyline, but the rooftop felt like another world, just the two of them, bound by truths too heavy for anyone else to carry. Naruto's words still hung in the night air. As a monster. As something broken. Rumi's throat tightened, but instead of answering with words, she moved. Slowly, carefully, she reached across the narrow space between them and laid her hand over his. His fist was still clenched tight, knuckles white, the skin marked with old scars. At her touch, he stiffened, breath catching as though he hadn't expected it. Rumi didn't pull away. Her patterns glowed faintly against his skin, light meeting light, a quiet promise between them. "You're not a monster," she whispered. "And you're not broken." Not to me. Naruto turned to her, eyes wide, something raw and unguarded breaking through the walls he always held. His lips parted, but no words came, only a shaky breath, his shoulders easing for the first time that night. For once, he didn't try to smile it off. He just let her hold his hand, their silence speaking louder than anything else. Above them, the stars burned bright, and for a fleeting moment, the weight he carried didn't feel so impossible. Naruto sighed, squeezing her hand gently, holding on to the warmth like it was the only thing tethering him here. For a long moment, he just breathed, steadying himself. Then his voice came low, calm, but unshakably strong. I'm not from here, Rumi. Not from this universe. Her breath caught, but she didn't pull away. I'm from the elemental nations, a world built on constant war and bloodshed. Kids there, they don't dream of being idols, or chefs, or artists. At 6, sometimes younger, they're trained to kill. We called ourselves shinobi. Tools of our countries. Disposable. He paused, his eyes flicking briefly to hers before turning back to the stars. But I was different. My father, he was the 4th Hokage, the leader of our village. A hero. And my mother, she carried something inside her, something ancient and terrible. The 9-tailed fox. A monster made of pure chaos and hate. Rumi's patterns dimmed slightly as her chest tightened, but she stayed silent. The night I was born, that monster broke free. It attacked our village. My parents, they gave their lives to stop it. My father sealed it inside me. His voice stayed even, but the weight in it pressed deep. The villagers hated it. Hated what I contained. So their hate turned on me. I grew up carrying their fear, their disgust, their whispers behind my back. He exhaled slowly, but didn't falter. I fought to prove I wasn't just a curse. I found friends, people who believed in me. Team 7 Sakura, Kakashi and Sasuke, my brother in everything but BLD. He left us, chasing revenge. And I chased him, because I couldn't let him throw his life away. His hand tightened on hers unconsciously. There were others. Enemies who wanted the fox inside me. The Akatsuki, a group of rogue shinobi. They hunted me, hunted my friends. And then came the 4th Shinobi War, our world's last stand. Every nation, every warrior. Against something bigger than all of us. His gaze hardened, his voice unwavering. Her name was Kaguya. The mother of chakra. A goddess of destruction. We couldn't beat her, she strpped me of everything. My chakra. Kurama's soul. She left me half of what I was, half human, half demon. I fled and jumped into a portal. And when it was done, I wasn't in my world anymore. I was here. Silence pressed in around them. The city lights buzzed faintly below, cars honking distantly, but up here, it felt like nothing existed but his words. Rumi stared at him, her chest aching so hard it felt like it might shatter. He had spoken with a steadiness she couldn't fathom, strong, unwavering, as though he had carried this story for years, waiting for someone he could finally give it to. Naruto turned his head at last, his amethyst eyes tired but unflinching. That's who I am, Rumi. All of it. No lies. No half-truths. Just me. The night air pressed heavy between them, the city's hum a distant blur. Naruto's words still hung there, raw, impossible, undeniable. Rumi sat frozen, her patterns flickering faintly against her skin, her hands still locked in his. She couldn't breathe past the lump in her throat. For a heartbeat, maybe two, she thought she'd never find her voice. But then it broke free, quiet and trembling. I don't care what universe you're from. Her eyes burned as she turned to face him fully. I don't care about demons, or wars, or gods trying to destroy you. None of that makes you a monster. None of it makes you less. Her grip on his hand tightened, fierce and unyielding. All it makes you is you. And if you think that's too much for me to handle, then you don't know me either. Naruto blinked, his breath hitching, caught off guard. For once, the words he always carried, the jokes he always leaned on failed him. He just stared at her, wide-eyed, as if her answer had cracked something in him deeper than any scar. And under the stars, with the city sprawling endlessly below, Rumi finally let the silence settle, not because she had nothing left to say, but because she'd said enough. Naruto's breath hitched, her words echoing louder in his chest than the city ever could. You don't know me either. For a long, fragile moment, they just stared at each other. Her patterns glowed faintly against his skin, their hands still linked, and the space between them felt unbearably small. Rumi leaned in first, slow, cautious, as if afraid the spell might break if she moved too fast. Naruto didn't pull away, his eyes flickered down, then back to hers, his shoulders tense but unmoving. The world seemed to still. Their foreheads brushed, his breath mingling with hers, warm in the night air. Just a tilt, just an inch more, and they would have closed the gap. Rumi's heart thundered. Naruto's hand twitched like he wanted to pull her closer. But neither of them moved that last inch. Instead, they stayed there, breath to breath, warmth to warmth, letting the closeness say what words couldn't. Naruto exhaled, his voice low and rough. Rumi. Her eyes fluttered shut, her whisper barely a breath. I know. And with the stars burning above them and the city sprawling endlessly below, they didn't kiss. Not yet. But in that fragile almost, the promise of it burned brighter than anything else. They sat together on the ledge, the city sprawling beneath them in rivers of light. Their hands remained intertwined, warm and steady, neither of them needing to speak. For the first time in too long, they were both perfectly at peace. Unseen to them, the Han moon stirred. Its broken strands began stitching themselves back together, not silver, not gold, but violet, glowing faintly in the unseen spaces between worlds. Naruto broke the silence, his voice low, curious. Hey, what were you calling out for? Back when the ramen shop collapsed. Rumi, her head resting lightly on his shoulder, blinked drowsily. Huh? You called for something, he explained, turning his eyes from the stars to her. Right before everything came down. What was it for? Oh. Her cheeks heated, and she shifted slightly, embarrassed. We were practicing for our performance. The Idol Awards are in 3 days. Zoey and Mira asked me to see if you wanted to come watch us rehearse. She said it quickly, almost shyly, like she regretted bringing it up at all. Naruto's lips curved into a grin. Oh. An opportunity to see the amazing Huntrix perform. How could I possibly say no? He threw an exaggerated expression, feigning awe, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Rumi groaned and punched his arm, though her blush deepened. You don't have to come. It was just an offer. Her words cut off as Naruto leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. Rumi froze, her thoughts scattering into silence, her heart slamming against her ribs. When he pulled back, he was smiling, warm, boyish, a little shy. If Mira and Zoey are fine with it, of course I'll come. Rumi could only stare, her face burning, her chest full of something she didn't have a name for yet. They sat together a little longer, the city lights stretching endlessly below, their hands still linked. Neither wanted to break the peace, but the night air was cooling, and reality would catch up eventually. Rumi shifted, pulling back reluctantly. I'll talk to Zoey and Mira, she said softly. If they're okay with it, I'll call you. Naruto nodded, the smile on his face small but genuine. Good. I'll be waiting. He hesitated, then added, and Rumi? Tell Mira I'm sorry. For dinner. I didn't mean to blow up like that. Her heart clenched at the weight in his voice. She wanted to argue, to tell him he had nothing to apologize for, but instead she just squeezed his hand one last time. I'll tell her, she promised. Naruto released her hand slowly, his warmth lingering on her skin as he stood. He gave her a soft grin, one more flash of boyish light before leaping effortlessly to the next rooftop, vanishing into the city night. Rumi stood on the ledge a little longer, the hum of the streets rising up around her. She pressed her fingers against her forehead where his kiss still lingered, her chest aching in ways she couldn't explain. Finally, with a deep breath, she turned back toward the penthouse. The violet glow of the Hanmoon shimmered unseen in the sky above. Naruto stepped down from the porch, waiting until Rumi's footsteps faded before he spoke into the empty air. "I know you're here, Indra. Come out." A shadow peeled itself from the darkness, forming into Indra's smug silhouette. His smile was knife-sharp. "Oh. Is the little demon falling in love with the hunter?" he cooed in a mocking baby voice before breaking into a cruel chuckle. "What if I just kill the girl, Ashura? Will you finally show me the monster you're hiding?" Naruto didn't flinch. His voice was steady. "You know, it took me a while to understand why you really wanted my soul. Even longer to figure out how to keep you on a leash." The smirk slid off Indra's face. His eyes hardened, and the air around him vibrated as he crouched to lunge. "What are you talking about?" Naruto lifted a hand, calm as stone. "Ah. Don't bother. I struck a deal with the Shinigami. My soul's his if I die or if you so much as harm me, or anyone else until Sunday. That's when we fight. To the death." Indra froze mid-step. His expression twisted, suspicion clawing at him. "You're bluffing. You don't even have chakra. How could you summon him without it?" Naruto laughed, the sound cutting through the night like glass. "I had a Shina mask. Family heirloom. Brought it as a last resort, in case sealing Kaguya went wrong. Chakra wasn't needed. Just Uzumaki BLD and a willing soul." For the first time, Indra's jaw clenched. He could cut Naruto down where he stood, but if the fool was telling the truth, the Shinigami would take the prize he wanted most. And without Uzumaki BLD, even Indra's power couldn't replicate the summoning. His eyes narrowed. "It seems we're at an impasse, then. Very well. I'll see you Sunday, Ashura. And when the time comes, I'll savor cutting you down." He melted back into shadow, leaving the night colder than before. Rumi walked in, the tension still buzzing in her chest. Mira opened her mouth to speak, but Rumi raised a hand, silencing her. "Mira, I get why you're skeptical about him. And I get why you have questions. But that's not the way to do it." Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned. "I really like him as a friend, and maybe someday, something more, and I won't let you scare him off." Mira scoffed, crossing her arms. "You don't know him. He could be using you. There's something about him I don't trust." Rumi exhaled sharply, her shoulders softening but her gaze never wavering. "I do know him. More than you think. And I promise, one day he'll tell you everything. But until then, can you respect his privacy for me?" Her wide eyes locked on Mira's, not pleading, but demanding trust. Mira held Rumi's gaze, her jaw tight, her eyes still sharp. For a long moment, the silence stretched, thick and unyielding. Then she sighed, her shoulders loosening just a fraction. "Fine," she said quietly. "For you, I'll back off. But don't expect me to stop watching him. Not until I know for sure." Rumi's chest eased, though she didn't let her guard drop entirely. "That's all I'm asking. Just give him time. Trust me." Mira gave a small, reluctant nod, her expression unreadable. "I do trust you, Rumi. I just don't trust him. Yet." Behind them, Zoey finally stirred, her voice small. "Can we just go to bed? Please?" The air softened a little, the sharp edge dulled for now, but the tension lingered like a storm cloud waiting for the right spark. Rumi's shoulders eased as she let out a small smile. "By the way, he said he's sorry. For blowing up at dinner." Mira blinked, her lips parting just slightly before she caught herself. For a moment, her stern mask cracked, just enough to reveal a flicker of surprise. Rumi tilted her head, her smile gentle but firm. He didn't have to say that. But he did. Mira exhaled slowly, rubbing at her temple. Humph. That doesn't erase everything, but it says something. Zoey, still quiet, finally glanced up with a faint, wobbly smile. Maybe he's not so bad after all. The air in the room lightened just a little, the sharp edge of conflict dulled. The storm wasn't gone, but for now, it had passed. That night, none of them slept alone. Zoey had insisted, dragging pillows and blankets until all three of them ended up piled together in the same bed. It was cramped, messy, and a little ridiculous. Zoey hogged half the covers, Mira complained under her breath as she tried to keep her space, but somehow, it worked. Rumi lay in the middle, caught between them, her eyes tracing the faint glow of city lights sneaking in through the curtains. Her body was still wound tight from everything: Naruto's scars, Myra's interrogation, the rooftop, the kiss on her forehead that still buzzed faintly against her skin, but for the first time in days, her chest didn't feel hollow. She felt Zoe shift in her sleep, snuggling closer, soft murmurs escaping her lips. On the other side, Mira remained stiff for a while, arms crossed even in bed, until eventually her breathing steadied and her shoulders loosened. Rumi smiled faintly in the dark. Whatever else tomorrow brought, the questions, the practice, the storm looming over them tonight, she wasn't alone. And in the stillness of the night, with her friends on either side, she let her eyes drift shut. The morning sun spilled through the curtains, golden light warming the tangled mess of blankets on the bed. Zoe groaned first, rolling onto her back with a dramatic stretch. Ugh, mornings should be illegal. Mira was already sitting up, hair neatly brushed back, eyes sharp even though she'd barely slept. That's because you stayed up whispering into your pillow, she muttered. Zoe gasped. I do not. Rumi laughed softly, rubbing her eyes. The sound eased something in her chest. After the chaos of last night, it felt good to wake like this together. They moved through the motions of the morning, coffee brewing in the kitchen, makeup bags spread across the counter, hairdryers buzzing faintly. The Idol Awards were only 3 days away, and practice would take up most of the day. By the time they'd finished pulling on their rehearsal clothes, a knock came at the door. Rumi exchanged a glance with Mira before opening it. Morning, girls, Bobby greeted, stepping in with his usual easy grin. He clapped his hands once. Looking sharp already. You sleep okay? Zoe yawned, hugging a pillow to her chest. Barely. Somebody hogged all the blankets. Mira arched a brow. You kick in your sleep. That's why you lost them. Rumi shook her head with a small smile as Bobby chuckled, setting a folded sheet of paper on the table. Glad you're all awake, because today's packed. We've got vocal warm-ups this morning, choreography revisions in the afternoon, and full dress rehearsal tonight. Idol Awards are 3 days away. We're tightening every seam now. Zoe perked up immediately, her sleepiness gone. Finally. I've been dying to run the set list in costume. Good, Bobby said, nodding at her enthusiasm. His gaze flicked to Mira. I need your focus on precision. Your cues keep the group sharp. Then, softer, to Rumi, and you've been carrying a lot lately. Remember to breathe out there. Your voice is strongest when you let yourself trust it. Rumi's chest warmed at his words. She nodded, quietly grateful. And before I forget, Bobby added, patting his bag. A nice gentleman stopped me outside and asked me to deliver this. He set a giant bag of homemade sweets on the table. It was bursting with every kind of cookie imaginable, neatly separated into little boxes. I had it screened already. It's safe to eat. Zoe gasped like a child on Christmas morning. Cookies. She dove for the bag instantly, Mira trying to hold her back with one arm while keeping her composure. Wait, Rumi said quickly, noticing an envelope tucked against the side. She pulled it free, her heart already racing. There's a note. Bobby handed it over. Rumi unfolded it carefully and read aloud. Sorry for everything last night. I hope y'all are doing well. I tried baking these in my terribly small kitchen. Gosh, it was awful, flour even got into the vents. Anyways, Miss Huang said cookies are the ultimate apology present, but clearly the real answer is ramen. Still, I hope this comes close, since, well, my shop is kind of predisposed at the moment. Have a great practice. At the bottom, scrawled in uneven ink, was a doodle of a chibi Naruto holding a little sign that read Huntrix. Zoey squealed, hugging the bag of sweets like it was treasure. He's the best. Even Mira hesitated, her lips twitching like she wanted to smile but refused to admit it. He drew that himself. Rumi pressed the note to her chest, biting her lip to hide the warmth spreading across her face. Her heart ached, but in the best way. Only Naruto would apologize with cookies, doodles, and ramen references all at once. Zoey was already stuffing a cookie into her mouth, humming like she'd just discovered heaven. Oh my god, these are amazing. Mira took one more carefully, inspecting it like she expected a trick, but after a small bite her brow arched. They're actually good. Bobby chuckled. Looks like your mystery baker passed the test. While the others crowded around the bag, Rumi lingered with the note in her hands. She traced her thumb over the uneven doodle of chibi Naruto, the little sign raised above his head. Huntrix. It was silly, crooked, and completely him. Her chest warmed, her lips curving into a smile she couldn't quite stop. She folded the note gently, slipping it into her pocket, close to her heart. All right, girls, Bobby said, clapping his hands once more. Cookies after practice. Let's move. Zoey groaned but obeyed, Mira already gathering her things. Rumi followed, her fingers brushing the folded paper in her pocket like a secret talisman. Practice could wait. For now, she carried his words with her. Practice blurred into motion. The morning started with Bobby pacing the studio, clapping out counts while Mira led the others through their choreography drills. Every step had to hit sharp, every turn polished. Sweat slicked across their skin, breaths growing heavy as mirrors reflected every mistake back at them. Again, Bobby called. Tighter on the third beat. Rumi, don't rush the transition, let it flow. She nodded, pushing through the ache in her legs. Zoey collapsed onto the floor between sets, fanning herself dramatically before Bobby barked her up again. Mira barely broke rhythm, sharp and precise, every move like a blade. By mid-morning, they shifted into vocal work, harmonies weaving, voices straining as they pushed for balance. Rumi's throat burned, but she let herself breathe, remembering Bobby's words. When she stopped trying to force perfection, her voice found it anyway. Hours bled away. Mistakes grew fewer, movements sharper, harmonies cleaner. By the time Bobby finally clapped his hands and said, "Break," the girls all collapsed in a heap of sweat and laughter on the studio floor. Lunch waited an hour to breathe, eat, and reset before the grind began again. They sprawled around a small table in the studio lounge, takeout containers open and chopsticks clinking. Zoey had already demolished half her noodles, Mira ate with calm precision, and Rumi pushed rice around her bowl, her thoughts somewhere else entirely. The cookies Naruto had sent sat in the middle, already raided once but still waiting like a centerpiece. Zoey popped a dumpling into her mouth and groaned happily. If Idol Awards gave trophies for eating speed, I'd already have 5. Mira rolled her eyes but didn't comment. Rumi hesitated, fiddling with her chopsticks. Then, quietly, she asked, "So about Naruto? Is it okay if he still comes? To watch us practice, I mean." Zoey looked up instantly, eyes sparkling. Yes. Are you kidding? After those cookies? He's basically our good luck charm now. Myra's expression cooled, but she didn't answer right away. She chewed slowly, then set her food down, folding her hands in her lap. Rumi held her breath, waiting. Finally, Mira looked up, her gaze steady but not sharp this time. It's fine. Both Rumi and Zoey froze, staring at her. Zoey nearly dropped her chopsticks. Wait, what? That's it? No lecture. No 20-question interrogation. Myra's lips twitched, like she almost wanted to smile but refused. Don't push it. I still don't trust him. It's clear he has secrets. But it's not like I hate him either. She lifted her tea, sipping calmly. If he makes you this happy, then I can deal with it for now. Zoey blinked, stunned into silence for a full 3 seconds before squealing. Oh my god, this is character growth. Rumi, though, felt her chest soften. She hadn't expected Mira to give ground so easily. Relief spread through her, warm and quiet. Thank you, she said softly. Mira set her cup down, meeting Rumi's eyes evenly. Just don't make me regret it. Rumi slipped out of the lounge, the muffled sounds of Zoey and Mira still bickering faintly behind her. She pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over the number she'd memorized faster than she'd admit. The line rang 3 times before a familiar voice picked up. Hello. Her chest eased at the sound. Hey, she said softly. I was wondering if you still wanted to come watch us practice. There was a pause, then Naruto's voice brightened, though it carried a breathless edge. Oh, yeah, I can come. I'm, a little busy right now, but I'll be there in 5. Rumi frowned slightly, catching the ragged sound in his breathing. Busy? On the other end, something thudded, followed by what might have been a muttered curse. Then Naruto chuckled, sheepish. Yeah, don't worry. Just finishing up something. Save me a cookie, alright? Before she could press further, the line clicked dead. Rumi lowered the phone slowly, her heart tugging between warmth and unease. Whatever he was doing, he hadn't wanted to say. But he was coming. That was enough at least for now. 5 minutes later, the studio door creaked open. A security guard poked his head in, looking baffled. Do any of you know a great Naruto Uzumaki, priest of the Ramen Hood? The girls froze. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.